Hi, everybody. Um, I just want to come on here and read some verses. I've been doing the lives lately, and I've really been enjoying those. So thank you to y'all who have been engaging, interacting, subscribing, because I've been having a lot of fun with y'all. It's a different experience than just posting these videos, which I also enjoy. But there was some things we touched on tonight in particular. Let me see. Tonight it's after midnight now, so it's uh, January 15th of 2026. But I was doing the live on January 15th, I think. 14th, I think. Anyway, it's now Thursday. Okay. So I'm gonna just get started here and hop around the Bible. That's what I've been doing lately, or maybe reading a book or something like that. And then God just like has his way, and it has been a time, a good time. So right now we're gonna start, let's see, it's Proverbs chapter 8, verse 32 through 36. So listen, my sons and daughters, to everything I tell you, for nothing will bring you more joy than following my ways. Listen to my counsel, for my instruction will enlighten you. You will be wise not to ignore it. If you wait at wisdom's doorway, longing to hear a word for every day, joy will break forth within you as you listen for what I'll say. For the fountain of life pours into you every time that you find me, and this is the secret of growing in the delight and the favor of the Lord. But those who stumble and miss me will be sorry they did. For ignoring what I have to say will bring harm to your own soul. Those who hate me are simply flirting with death. To hate wisdom is not only a sign of stupidity, but it is also a mark of depravity. I have to sneeze. Hold on. Okay. Wisdom, I empower princes to rise and take dominion, and generous ones to govern the earth. And in Joshua, when he tells us in chapter 1 to be strong and be very courageous, and to meditate on this book of the law or this book of instruction, the word of the Lord, day and night. Because when you do that, then you will be prosperous in all that you do. Right? He's talking to us about going forth, and every place that the sole of your foot treads will be yours. So he's giving us dominion. He's giving us power to trample on snakes and scorpions. And we have the ability to take the territory. And then living our lives with God pronounces judgment on the powers of the air. And God does the work, right? You will not have to fight this battle, right? Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. So wisdom, which true wisdom comes from God, empowers princes to rise and take dominion, and generous ones to govern the earth. I will show my love to those who passionately love me, for they will search and search continually until they find me. Unending wealth and glory come to those who discover where I dwell. The riches of righteousness and a long satisfying life will be given to them. What I impart has greater worth than gold and treasure, and the increase I bring benefits more than a windfall of income. I lead you into the ways of righteousness to discover the paths of true justice. Those who love me gain great wealth and a glorious inheritance, and I will fill their lives with treasures. So let me count, just in those, 4 or 5 verses, 16 to 21, in that many verses, he's saying, wisdom is saying, I empower you to take dominion, to rise and take dominion, to govern the earth. Okay, verse 18, unending wealth and glory. The riches of righteousness and a long satisfying life. And then verse 20, I lead you into the ways of righteousness to discover. No, verse 21, those who love me gain great wealth and a glorious inheritance, and I will fill their lives with treasures. So this is multiple kinds of treasures, right? When you read the Bible, it unfolds in many different layers. But Abraham made a covenant with God, or God made a covenant with Abraham. And then the next chapter, like 13, he says Abraham was very rich. Isaac was very rich, right? Jacob got very rich. Joseph, very rich. Moses, right? And so Esther, David, the Lord himself will build you a house. The way is narrow and very few find it. But when we do find it, this is part of the deal. So, the church got infiltrated, yes. And we gotta rat them. We gotta sniff out the rats. Mercy and dominion, mercy and gentleness and all that, it's very important, yes. We want to extend that to the sheep who are hurt, broken, lost. But in doing so, we also have to be sure to have a just balance and protect those sheep from the wolves in sheep's clothing. They might not have the same discernment, okay, but in doing this, marking out clear boundaries in our lives, they're mapped out clearly in the Bible. Walk holy. And then he shows us what is holiness. This is going to cause the fear of God to come back on the earth. Like in the book of Acts, even if they didn't want to be a Christian because they didn't want to walk that way, they at least respected the name of Jesus, right? So when we walk with God, it says that we're going to be given these things. And the treasures, I believe it's in Ephesians, it talks about those treasures that have already been lavished on us. Now, that's not talking about money. That's going on like wisdom, which is more valuable than silver and gold, which is going to cause you to become successful, right? So anyway, let me come back over here. This had caught my attention. I'm just going to start reading because I don't know which part it is. I just turned to it and it caught my attention. Okay, we're in Matthew 16, verse 17. Jesus replied, "You are favored and privileged, Simeon, son of Judah, or Simon, I'm sorry, son of Jonah." Boy, I've been reading for a couple hours at this point. Like, please excuse me. "You are favored and privileged, Simon, son of Jonah." Simon means he who hears. Peter heard the Father's whisper within that Jesus was the Christ. Simon was his formal Hebrew name. Peter became his identity as Jesus gave him the nickname of Pebble. Okay, he's also referred to as Simon Peter. "For you didn't discover this on your own, but my Father in heaven has supernaturally revealed it to you. I give you the name Peter, a stone, and on this rock will be the bedrock foundation on which I will build my church." Okay, so the rock is the revelation. He's going to build his church. He's going to build the body on the revelation of the Son, that is Jesus Christ. The revelation, the utterance that Peter spoke, right? So Peter's not the rock. He's called Pebble, right? But he's not what the church is built on. The revelation of Jesus Christ is what the body is built on. Because when we receive and unfold and continually unfold the revelation of Jesus Christ, it does stuff inside of us. It causes us to grow stronger. It causes us to walk differently, to talk differently, to not be able to abide in the ways that we once did, in the troughs with the pigs, in the mud holes, right, with the dogs and the fleas. We can't operate that way because as we continue to grow in him and the word becomes flesh in us, we are raised. We come from the trash heap, which he tells us 3 times in the Bible, twice in the Psalms, and once in, 1 Samuel 2:8. I think that's the one. But in the Psalms, he tells us that he lifts the poor and the needy from the trash heap, from the dust, and he seats them with the nobles of his people. So when we are growing in the knowledge and the revelation and the understanding of Jesus, we are becoming nobles, which is why we get to be seated with nobles. And it has taken me about 5 years or 6 years to unravel this. Excuse me again. Okay. So on this rock, the rock of revelation of Jesus Christ, will I build my church. My legislative assembly, okay, and the power of death will not be able to overpower it. Now here we get into something very interesting. He says, my legislative assembly. The Greek word for church is ecclesia and means legislative assembly or selected ones. This is not a religious term at all, but a political and governmental term that is used many times in classical Greek for a group of people who have been summoned and gathered together to govern the affairs of a city. For Jesus to use this term means he is giving the keys of governmental authority in his kingdom to the church. This is so exciting because I'm delighted because I didn't plan any of this. Like I said, I just opened it up and it caught my attention. Okay, there is some underlined stuff there. So, and then the bookmark was there, but I was over in Proverbs, which is at the back of this particular Bible. So for all of it to just come together like this, it is so exciting to me. Okay, my legislative assembly and the power of death. So let's see. Or the gates of hell. A metonym. I don't know how to say that word. For the power of death. So So the power of death will not be able to overpower it, the legislative assembly. All the forces of hell will never have the power to win a victory over it. There is no power of darkness that can stop the advancing church that Jesus builds. We operate in power. He gave us the power, the authority to trample on snakes and scorpions here. How could they stop us once we reach this revelation? Right? And where two or three come together and against the church, the gates of hell will not prevail. The church is a body. So we come into agreement and unity. If I'm isolated and off by myself, the enemy can have an easier time getting me. They just got to wait a while until I get tired of operating all alone. Maybe I get irritated or something like that, and boom, they can find a way, a weakness, a weak point in my armor to shoot that arrow, that poisonous dart, which if I don't uproot it right away, it can permeate through the spiritual, which is my inside, to the outside and bear a nasty fruit. You know that if somebody bites through, it's rotten, or something like that. It doesn't go well. That's if I'm by myself. Like Elijah was by himself, and when Jezebel was like, "Hey, I'm gonna kill you by tomorrow," he went off. He needed the angels to minister to him, to eat some food, to get some sleep, right? But when we are together, we can agree. This storm is not going to touch this place. Or, Psalm 91, though 1,000 perish over here and 10,000 over there, we are not going to be touched because I know his name, because I know what he said about me, about us. We come into agreement. They cannot overpower us when we are together. And you can see my blind spots and I can see yours. And as long as it's not a judgmental, I'm looking at you for the little speck that you have when I have a giant plank in my eye. If I'm handling and allowing the Holy Spirit to work out those planks, get them out of my eye, well, then we can talk about it together from humility, from love. Against the gates of hell, against the church, the gates of hell will not prevail, cannot prevail. Isaiah 54:17, no weapon formed against us can prosper. And we will refute every voice that rises against us in condemnation or in judgment, because that is the heritage of the saints, of those who follow God, those who belong to God. I will give you the keys. I will give you the keys of heaven's kingdom realm to forbid on earth that which is forbidden in heaven, and release on earth that which is released in heaven. Or whatever you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will have been loosed in heaven. Or that which you forbid on earth must be that which is already forbidden in heaven, and that which you permit on earth must be that which is already permitted in heaven. Okay. He then gave his disciples strict orders not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. From then on, Jesus began to clearly reveal to his disciples that he was destined to go to Jerusalem and suffer injustice from the elders, leading priests, and religious scholars. He also explained that he would be killed and 3 days later be raised to life again. Peter took him aside to correct him privately. He reprimanded Jesus over and over, saying to him, "God forbid, Master, spare yourself. You must never let this happen to you." Jesus turned to Peter and said, but the alternate translation could be, he turned from Peter and said, "Get out of my way, you Satan." What letter is that? K. Jesus is equating Peter's display of character to that of Satan. Peter was not possessed by Satan, but speaking from Satan's realm and speaking demonic wisdom. See James 3:15. The Hebrew Matthew can be translated, "Follow me, don't quarrel with me, adversary." Okay, James 3:15, for that has nothing to do with God's heavenly wisdom, but can be best described as the wisdom of this world, both selfish and devilish, or unspiritual and like a demon. So get out of my way, you Satan. You are a hindrance to me, because your thoughts are only filled with man's viewpoints and not with the ways of God. Or you are laying a trap for me, because your thoughts are only filled with man's viewpoints and not with the ways of God. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if you truly want to follow me, you should at once completely reject and disown your own life, and you must be willing to share my cross and experience it as your own, or offer yourself up to death. As you continually surrender to my ways. For if you choose self-sacrifice and lose your lives for my glory, you will continually discover true life. But if you choose to keep your lives for yourselves, you will forfeit what you try to keep. For even if you were to gain all the wealth and power of this world at the cost of your own life, what good would that be? And what good What could be more valuable to you than your own soul? Or what would a person give in exchange for his life? I, the Son of Man, will one day return with my messengers, or angels, and in the splendor and majesty of my Father. And then I will reward each person according to what they have done. And I can look all these up. So right now we're going to look up Psalm 28:4, 62:12, and Proverbs 24:12. Psalm 28:4 says, "Go ahead and punish them as they deserve. Let them be paid back for all their evil plans in proportion to their wickedness." Okay, 62:12. All the love you need is found in me, and it's true that you repay people for what they do. And then Proverbs 24:12. Proverbs. And why would you say, but it's none of my business? The one who knows you completely and judges your every motive is also the keeper of souls, and not just yours. He sees through your excuses and holds you responsible for failing to help those whose lives are threatened. Okay, and let's finish up with 24:13 and 14. Revelation knowledge is a delicacy, sweet like flowing honey that melts in your mouth. Eat as much of it as you can, my friend. For then you will perceive what is true wisdom. Your future will be bright, and this hope living within you will never disappoint you.